6:43 in the evening, September 8th, 1944. Staveley Road, Chiswick, a quiet street in West London. There was no siren, no engine noise, no warning of any kind. One moment, an ordinary Friday evening. The next, a crater, and 3 lives lost. A 63-year-old woman, a soldier home on leave, a 3-year-old girl asleep in her cot. The survivors heard the explosion first, and only afterward the sound of the rocket arriving, because the weapon that found them was falling faster than sound itself. This is where every documentary about the V-2 begins. And this is where most of them get the story wrong. Because here's what they don't tell you. By the time that rocket struck Chiswick, the V-2 had already claimed thousands of victims, and almost none of them were British. They were the prisoners who built it. And every single launch, every rocket that rose from its pad in a column of flame, was quietly pushing Germany closer to collapse. This is not the story of a wonder weapon. This is the story of how the Third Reich spent the price of the Manhattan Project, helping the Allies win the war. Let's start with the number that should have ended the program before it began. The V-2 cost Germany roughly 2 billion Reichsmarks. To put that in perspective, it was comparable to what the United States spent on the Manhattan Project. Think about what that means. 2 nations, 2 colossal gambles, 2 comparable fortunes. One of them produced the weapon that ended the Second World War. The other produced an artillery shell. Because that's what the V-2 really was. Each rocket carried a warhead of roughly 1 ton of explosive. A single Allied heavy bomber carried several times that, and the bomber came back the next night, and the night after that. The rocket flew once. Over 7 months of attacks, the entire V-2 campaign delivered about 3,000 tons of high explosive. The Royal Air Force could drop that in a single raid. And the cost per rocket? The physicist Freeman Dyson, who worked in RAF Bomber Command's operations research during the war, put it simply. Each V-2 cost about as much as a high-performance fighter aircraft. Germany's own Minister of Armaments, Albert Speer, ran the numbers after the war. The resources poured into the rocket program, he estimated, could have built 24,000 fighters instead. 24,000! At the exact moment the Luftwaffe was being swept from the skies, and Allied bombers were pounding German cities night after night, largely unopposed. Even Germany's own generals saw it. Field Marshal von Rundstedt asked the question out loud, "Why are we wasting our last resources on these rocket toys?" But the money was only the beginning. Because the V-2 didn't just consume Germany's cash, it consumed something far more precious. Every V-2 that lifted off burned nearly 4 tons of ethyl alcohol. And where do you get alcohol in a blockaded country in 1944? Potatoes. The rocket program consumed 1/3 of Germany's entire alcohol production, distilled largely from the potato harvest, in a nation where food was rationed and civilians were going hungry. Every launch was, quite literally, taking food off German tables and setting it on fire over the North Sea. Then there was the liquid oxygen, nearly 5 tons per launch. The specialized production capacity. The thousands of engineers and skilled technicians at Peenemünde and beyond. Some of the finest technical minds in Germany, locked away on a program that would never, could never, change the outcome of the war. And here is the cruelest irony of all. Germany had a rocket design that might have actually mattered. The Wasserfall, a guided anti-aircraft missile built on V-2 technology. A weapon designed to do the one thing Germany desperately needed in 1944, stop the Allied bombers. It was never finished. The V-2 devoured the resources, the talent, and the priority. So the Reich chose the weapon of revenge over the weapon of defense. It chose to throw 1-ton warheads at distant cities, while its own cities burned. Freeman Dyson, watching from the Allied side, delivered the verdict that no German general dared to speak. From the Allied point of view, he said, The V-2 program was almost as good as if Hitler had adopted a policy of unilateral disarmament. Read that again. The Allies' own analysts concluded that Germany's ultimate wonder weapon was working for them. And yet, everything you've heard so far is only the second darkest thing about this rocket. In August 1943, the RAF bombed Peenemünde. The rocket program survived, but it went underground, literally, into a disused fuel depot carved deep inside the Kohnstein mountain in central Germany. The factory was called Mittelwerk. The camp that fed it with workers was called Dora-Mittelbau. Around 60,000 prisoners passed through that camp. Concentration camp inmates, forced laborers from across occupied Europe. In the early months, they didn't just work inside the mountain, they lived inside it. No daylight, no fresh air. Sleeping in the tunnels they were digging, in air thick with rock dust and chemical fumes, working shifts of up to 18 hours. Men died of exhaustion, of starvation, of disease, and men were executed on suspicion of sabotage. The death toll at Dora is estimated at up to 20,000 people. Even the most conservative accounts put it above 12,000. Now hold that number against the other one. The V-2, across its entire combat career, every rocket, every city, every target, killed no more than 9,000. Michael Neufeld, curator at the National Air and Space Museum and the leading historian of the program, put it in one sentence. More people died building the V-2 rockets than were killed by them. No other weapon in history can make that claim, not one. And the prisoners knew exactly what they were building. Some of them fought back the only way they could. One survivor later admitted that since the punishment was the same whether he worked well or badly, he occasionally left the wiring loose. That sabotage, combined with the impossible conditions and the rushed engineering, showed up in the numbers. Roughly 6% of V-2s exploded at launch. By some counts, of the more than 3,000 rockets fired in anger, only around 1 in 3 actually reached its target. The Reich's precision terror weapon, assembled by the very people it was starving and quietly broken by their hands. So let's put the whole picture together. A weapon that cost as much as the atomic bomb and delivered in 7 months what Bomber Command delivered in 1 night. A weapon that ate the fuel, the food, and the engineering talent Germany needed to defend itself, while the one missile that could have protected German cities died on the drawing board. A weapon that killed at least 12,000 of its own builders, to kill fewer than 9,000 of its enemies. The British War Office, examining the program after the war, concluded the V-2 was never part of any serious strategic plan. It was, in their words, conceived as a supergun, a weapon built to impress those in the highest places. It was theater. 2 billion Reichsmarks of theater, performed for an audience of 1 man in a bunker. The Allies never had to defeat the V-2. They just had to let it run. The V-2 didn't fail. It backfired. And yet, the moment the war ended, American and Soviet teams raced each other across a broken Germany to grab the rockets, the blueprints, and the men who made them. Because the V-2 was a catastrophic weapon, but a revolutionary machine. In 1946, a captured V-2 launched from New Mexico took the first photograph of Earth from space. Its chief designer would later joke that the rocket had performed perfectly, it simply landed on the wrong planet. The 20,000 men buried at Dora never got to hear the punchline. That's all for this episode of Redacted Arsenal. Thank you for watching. I'm Lucas, and if you made it this far, you already know what this channel is about. Subscribe, and if you'd like to support the channel further, there's a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. See you in the next one.